Not sure how to pivot or rotate in your golf swing? Well, I got great news. In this next video, I'm going to be showing you a centered pivot golf swing. Keep watching. Hi, it's Troy from hittingitsolid.com here. Thanks for watching. So in this video, we're talking about the centered pivot golf swing. Now, once you've been through this video, you'll be able to make a much more controlled, centered golf swing and hit the ball a lot more solid. So if this is your first time here, make sure you like this video and consider subscribing to the channel. It helps me make more great videos like this so we can both keep on improving, playing better golf together. So the centered pivot golf swing. So what does pivot even mean? Well, if I'm set up to one here, pivot is the same as rotation. It's that point in that backswing where the body starts to turn or pivot, and then on the downswing, pivots again as we start through the downswing. So why is a centered turn much more preferable? Well, let's look at the opposite of what a centered pivot is in this example. And that would be too much lateral sway or move off the ball, and that would look something like this. Now the reason moving off the ball, it doesn't matter whether you've got an iron or a driver, is a lot less efficient, because the further you move away, guess what? The further you've got to come back this way and hit the golf ball. And it is very difficult in a downswing that takes something like a quarter of a second to get this body over on top of the golf ball. If you've moved so far away from the ball, it's much more efficient and easier to make a centered pivot like this and be able to get down on top of the ball. It enables you to have more of a consistent low point, that point where we're hitting the ball, whether it's with a driver or an iron, makes it much easier. Now, I want to stress, having a centered pivot golf swing is not reverse pivoting. That's a completely different thing. Reverse pivoting is leaning the upper body towards the target. I'm talking about maintaining your inclination in your backswing. So I've made a centered turn, but I've still maintained my inclination in that pivot. And the other important thing to remember too is it's okay for the head to move a little bit. I don't want this head of yours when you're over the ball just to remain still and rigid looking down at the ball. I don't want you doing this to remain centered. That's not what I'm talking about. I want you to still get a little bit of head movement. But still keep nice and centered, so that's really important. So this is one thing to say we need to make a centered pivot golf swing, but how do we actually do it? Here's some great feels to help you start ingraining more of a centered pivot golf swing into your game. Okay, here's some great feels so you can make more of a centered pivot golf swing. And I promise you, regardless of where you're at in your golf game right now, if you can get more of a centered swing, you will find it much easier to get that club down to the golf ball and be a lot more consistent. So the first one, right shoulder. So as I'm set up to one here, I want you to feel as you get over the ball and you make your backswing, feel like that right shoulder is just moving up and back. Rather than feeling like the right shoulder is moving across like this, I want you to feel the right shoulder is going up and back. So it'll look like this. Up and back. That way I'm staying a lot more centered on top of the golf ball. Now the left shoulder, if you're someone that sways off the ball, doesn't remain centered, you would have a very similar looking backswing like to that, very flat. So the great feel is for that left or lead shoulder, feel like it's going down at the start of the backswing. And that'll look like this. So left shoulder, lead shoulder going down. And we'll remain a lot more centered. Now the final one is the roll of the right leg. Again, if you're someone that sways, moves off the ball, the right leg will do this. You often get a lot of pressure on the right sort of instep of the right leg as it moves across. Feel like that right leg moves back in this motion here, and it straightens a bit in this motion here. So from this position here we go, and we've remained a lot more centered. Let's have a look at it from this angle here. Okay, so we're gonna go back, right leg's moving back. I've stayed nice and centered. Left shoulder's down, right shoulder back. Made a much more centered backswing. So there's some great feels you can have to really feel the movement and ingrain that into your golf game. Now, important, listen up. I've got some great drills coming up that can help you practice this and embed this further into your game. They're coming up. Here's a couple of simple drills that can really help you make a centered pivot golf swing. So, first one, you can do this inside your house. You don't actually have to be hitting balls to do this. It's really effective. Grab a club, put it across your chest. Now, what I'm going to do is make a turn. I want you to feel like that the club head side here points down towards the golf ball. If you do that, you're staying centered. Let's have a look what happens if I try to move off the ball a bit. You'll see there, the club points well behind the ball and I'm really off balance. But what I'd like you to do is when you turn, have it pointing more down towards the golf ball. That way you're remaining a lot more centered. Now, if you haven't got the flexibility, you can't make a full turn, that's fine. What I want you to work on is just as you make your turn, just try to have that club pointing more down in front of the golf ball. What I don't want it to do is doing this sort of action and really and thinking that this is pointing at the golf ball. That's the way to do it. We just want a little turn and really staying centered. Now, it's important to note when you're making this move, you're still feeling pressure into that right instep. We're still shifting pressure to the right. We're just not doing a big sway motion over there. Really important to understand that. Okay, now the next drill, this is one I really like, really effective. Set up to a ball here. Now for lefties, you just do the exact opposite. Now, before you make your swing, I want you to close your left eye. Now, if you're doing this properly, making a centered swing, in this example, I should still be able to see the golf ball with my left eye closed. I should be able to see it with my right eye. So I'll close that left eye. I can still see that ball with my right eye. However, let's try the opposite and do a move off the ball. You can see there, I can't see the ball at all. All I can see is somewhere around this area here because I've moved my head too far over. If I stay centered, I can still keep my eye on the ball. Yep. Can still see it. Really effective drill. You can practice this even at the driving range. Not something I'd recommend on the golf course, but it's an effective way of keeping yourself more centered in the golf swing. Now this bit I'm going to talk about coming up is really important. Now really important when you're making a more centered pivot golf swing is that you maintain your posture. Now I'll show you this from a couple of different angles, but we still want to maintain those tilts that we created at address. So throughout the golf swing, while we're remaining centered, we still need to keep those tilts and stay nice and balanced. Really important. We're putting pressure into that right instep in the backswing. Now in the downswing, we're doing the same thing. We're putting pressure in that left instep, and because we've made a more centered pivot, it's going to make your downswing much easier, especially with your irons, to stay on top of the ball and really compress it. Because in the downswing, you do need to have a little bit of lateral shift, very important. We're not keeping all our weight on our rear side. So the centered pivot is there. Then on the downswing, we're shifting over upper body and lower body. And we're getting right on top of that golf ball there. Let's have a look at it from down the line. Now this will show the tilts that I'm talking about. You can see I've created that nice tilt in my upper body at address. So as we go back, you can see there I maintain my tilts while still making a centered turn. And we get that little bit of lateral shift as we pivot through to impact. Some keys there that are really important for you to know. Now this next video I've got coming up is a must watch because it's talking about how to stop sliding in the golf swing, which we've touched on in this video. Make sure you watch it, it's coming up. Do you want to know how to make an even better golf swing? Click and watch the video on your screen now. It's going to go into more detail about how to stop sliding in the golf swing, which ties in really well with this video to help you make a great golf swing. Do you want to know how to play even better golf? Consider subscribing to the channel. And remember, if you have any questions or comments, please let me know. I will get back to you. Thanks for watching. See you next time.